For today's Dollar Bin Reviews, we're going to be talking about Dollface, starring Alex Villarret, a French actress. At least she's on the cover this time. Now, this isn't as misleading of a cover as we've seen in plenty of these other Dollar Bin films. But this little phrase here, we all turn in the end. That one's a bit confusing. Even after watching this, I still have no idea what that's trying to imply. On the back cover here, we see our friend Alex Villarret, and her face is kind of turning into porcelain. There's some cracks on the side. The eyes are turning red. The red lipstick is very prominent. I see a bunch of creepy dolls. And that doesn't really show up in this film. Again, you usually have at least one side of these dollar bin cases that's kind of misleading. So after reading the little film description, looking at the front and back cover, looking at the title, you start to think, oh, is this about somebody turning into a doll or something? That sounds pretty cool. So you pick it up to see what's going on. It kind of does throw you for something of a loop in regards to twists. The film is mercifully short. It's about an hour and 15 minutes, 75 minutes. And it doesn't really feel like 75 minutes at all. It feels like maybe 45 minutes. It's very short. And there's a lot of interesting things in this film that are kind of unique in regards to you don't see other films do this. In the entire film, she does not talk verbally, like speaky talk with her lips, but she does have a form of narration. Like, she speaks as if it was like post-production. Maybe she doesn't know French. Maybe she she doesn't know English. Maybe that's it. So they had to have her read lines in post, and then they just threw that on there afterwards. Maybe that's what they did. I don't know. Maybe this was intentional, but throughout the whole film, she does not talk. Other people talk to her, and then you hear her voice, disembodied, speak and reply to things. And then they reply to her as if they could hear this disembodied voice that's speaking without her lips moving. So that's all very strange. The other actors in this film are all very, they are entertaining. They're very passable. The doll maker here, he's passable. He's very entertaining. The owner of this apartment that she's staying in, he's very entertaining. That's really it. You only see two to three other major characters, minor supporting cast. It's mostly about Alex Villarret and these dolls. So let's talk about the whole story synopsis. Alex Villarret plays a character named Marmalade. I don't know who still names their children that, but whatever. Marmalade is the granddaughter of a grandmother who passed recently. The grandmother was very into collecting dolls. And some of these dolls throughout this lady's apartment you might recognize. I recognize a fair few of these things you could find at antique stores. There's a bunch of these old porcelain dolls. They just throw them all over the place. Not really meant to look creepy or all. They're just thrown all over the place. There's a Cabbage Patch Kid somewhere. There's that dude who eats hamburgers in the Popeye shorts. He's posted somewhere. There's a bunch of the Wizard of Oz film things posted places, like the Good Witch is in a cabinet. There's a few other figures that you might recognize. There's a bunch of Santa dolls. there's just a mismatch. It's like somebody just grabbed a bunch of random dolls and strewn them across the apartment just to make it look like this lady collected a bunch of dolls. And it's pretty cool. A couple of these dolls do look pretty good in design, and a couple others look very cheap. And a bunch of others look like they're little statues instead of dolls. But this film it definitely feels like an indie film. When you look on the back here, the only distribution group is the Echo Bridge, and this here, which I'm going to try to read off, SP Releasing. Is that what it says? It's very small lettering, and I'm not good at finding. Yes, SP Releasing LLC. Manufactured and distributed by SP Releasing LLC. So yeah, for a bunch of these things we have that have no other film company that made it, we'll usually just have SP Releasing and Echo Bridge, just those two come together. Echo Bridge has been around for a while. I don't know how long, I don't know when they started, but I've picked up films over 10 years ago that have shown the Echo Bridge thing. You know, these 4 midnight horror films, the 4 sci-fi films, they're all indie type films, and they throw a bunch of them together into a DVD disc, and you'll see Echo Bridge put them out. Anyways, so the granddaughter, Marmalade, inherits a house from her grandmother filled with dolls, and the owner of the tenant, the owner of the apartment building, whatever, the landlord, shows her a contract and explains that she can inherit everything in this apartment, everything in it, and she probably won't even need to pay rent. I don't know. Her grandmother felt rich, and she even has her own driver, like an Uber driver. I don't know. It felt like a little very, very expensive looking car, at the very least. So it looks like her grandmother is very well off. So when she passed, she left everything to Marmalade, under the condition that she stays in this apartment and looks after the dolls as if they were her own children, just as the grandmother did. Sounds harmless, really, but you get the feeling that some of these dolls might actually have a life and will of their own. Ooh. No, really, this film had very little budget. They couldn't really do any special effects. There's no, what's the word I'm looking for? CGI? Yeah, that's it. There's no CGI at all in this film. At all. Surprising. Not even cheap CGI that you'd find on the Flash or something. No. There is no CGI in this at all. And I think it might have needed it a little bit, just to make these dolls look like they have a life of their own, to make their movements feel like they're moving on their own. Because when you see these dolls move, you know somebody's moving them. You know somebody's like, what's a good example? Okay, here we go. So let's say we have that guy right there. You see he's just standing there. He's just standing there menacingly. And you see some hand right off screen, just off screen. Let's move his head back that way so you won't see it. That's how they angle the camera. They angle the camera so that you won't see the hand moving the doll. That's basically how it looks. That's basically how they did it. They would have this in a corner off screen so you don't see the hand moving the doll. Sometimes they would use strings to move them. They do all that type of ideas and tricks of the trade to make these dolls look like they're moving without actually having to put a lot of money and effort into it. So the kudos for it. It's a decent camera. I think it's like a GoPro or whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's a decent camera quality. It's not grainy. It's very nice looking, but it does have problems with lighting. So you get the feeling this wasn't a very expensive camera that they were using. Because it does have problems with lighting. Because when you go under the table or something, when you have the girl looking under the table and have the camera following her, sometimes the light and everything would dim as the lens tries to adjust to the picture, and you get the feeling that that's a cheap camera. But at least the film quality's not grainy and all that stuff. It looked good. The sound did kind of feel a little bit on the cheap side as well. It's the cheap side as if you'd hear it from me speaking right now. It's about that kind of quality. But the actors didn't really have mics. That's what I'm trying to say. They don't have like mics in their lapels, hidden mics to like enhance their voice when they're talking from far away. Everybody's got to be up close near the camera so that the camera could pick up the microphone on the camera could pick up their voices. That's how it felt. And then there was a lot of music being played throughout. The music was okay. There's some echoes of children's voices. I don't know if it was stock. And then they had a lot of reused footage. Like, they would capture footage of one of the dolls, and then they would reuse that same frame of that doll multiple times throughout the film. And they really pinched their numbers or whatever. They really pinched the effort to fill out the runtime. It looks like they really didn't have a lot of money to film this, but somebody really wanted to do it, so they really went for it. I'm not gonna knock them for really wanting to do something and just pushing it out there, you know? But this went straight to streaming in the underbelly of a streaming service that only a die-hard streaming searcher would find. And then Echo Ridge put it out on hard copy. Good job, Echo Ridge. Good job. What else can I say? So she's staying at the apartment, and the dolls are starting to be a little creepy at night. She's talking to the dolls, and she's not actually talking, you know, the voice, the lips, they're not moving. But as I've told you, the post or whatever, her voice is still talking as if she's talking to the dolls, but she's not actually talking. Whatever. So, as she's looking at the dolls, you hear a voice of her talking without her lips moving. And she's talking to them like they're real people. She's picking one of them up, saying, okay, you'll get to sleep with me tonight. Whatever. Her accent's very heavy. She is French. Her accent is very, very heavy. So, she's talking to them like that. And she takes the dolls into the bedroom. She falls asleep. There's a lot of scenes with her just laying in bed at night with one of the dolls. And that's how they filmed. There's like 10 to 15 minutes of her just spending a night in the bed. Wake up the next day, you get about 5 to 10 minutes of whatever during the day, then she goes back to bed. Then she wakes up, does things, goes back to bed. She wakes up, does things, goes back to bed. And I can't count how many times we had a little filming in the bed, but each time something does happen. Each night something does happen, so at least we're not wasting our time, our film running time. I'd argue that you are, but whatever. So the dolls start feeling a little bit unnerving. When she wakes up one morning, she finds one of the dolls has a noose around her neck, and she gets all afraid. The girl's like, who put the noose there? Is somebody broken into my house? And the doll's broken, so she takes the broken doll to the doll maker, who fixes the doll for her. The doll maker is some homeless dude living somewhere in the middle alley between some apartments, and he fixes the dolls for free for her. You get the feeling that he's got more than meets the eye to him. Like, he's a bit creepy. He's the creepy type of person, who knows, whatever. But he's nice enough to Marmalade. He fixes her dolls for her. He says, it's all in the contract. It's all in the contract. No charge. So, she takes the fixed doll back to her house, her apartment. Another night happens, and she wakes up, and she sees another doll has a noose around its neck and has been hanged. And then this hanging thing, this theme of something being hanged, follows throughout the film as more and more different types of dolls are hanged, and the other dolls are acting strangely, and they're following her around the house, apartment. I keep saying house. I'm going to keep saying house. So the dolls are following around the apartment, yada 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 yada, and she does not die, surprisingly. She decides she's going to leave the apartment. She's going to void the contract because the last night she stays here, a noose is actually around her neck this time when she wakes up. And she's like, nope, I'm out of here. So she leaves the apartment, and then we shift the story to a note being read by her grandmother that's off in the corner. The grandmother's note is to the landlord, saying, don't get my lawyers involved. Just give everything here to the granddaughter. She sees, that's what she says. But then in the second half, you hear that she's committed suicide. The grandmother committed suicide by hanging. So you get the feeling that these dolls weren't cursed, haunted, lifelike prior to this act that she went through. So now you know that the apartment is haunted because the grandmother hanged herself. So there's that theme, the theme of the noose. It's all surrounding all these dolls, and then it tried to hang her. So now the apartment's haunted with the ghost of the act of such a terrifying thing. And I guess the theme of all of these dolls having witnessed such a horrific thing, and the memory of that thing is imprinted on their eyes. And I'm guessing that's what the type of thematic thing they were going for was. If it wasn't, you could have fooled me. And then I am fooled with the next scene, because we now switch to the lady's therapist. I didn't mention him, but she's speaking with a therapist throughout the film, at least 2-3 visits, because she thinks that the dolls are kind of alive, and he's saying, oh, don't be silly, yada 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 yada. He gives her some medicine, yada yada. And then you find out that the therapist actually wasn't a therapist at all. He was just a doll collector. And then he's talking to a doll maker. And the doll maker is a maker of lifelike dolls. And then you zoom out, and then you see Alex Belleret is actually a doll herself. So it's not that she gets turned into a doll. She is a doll. And the backstory that you hear, that you just watched, is actually just a backstory on the little tag that these big dolls come from. They have a little tag, sometimes, like, you know, when you get a TY Beanie Baby, you open the little tag, and it shows you a little story about the little doll. And that's basically what it is. You open the tag, and it says, Marmalade Doll. And here's the little story about her grandmother in the apartment, and the cursed dolls, yada yada yada. And then you see that the dolls move on their own off screen. When the doll maker and the therapist dude, when they walk off screen, you see that the dolls are actually alive. And then we skip to like a 5-minute scene of the doll maker in his car having road rage. And it's very, very funny in a not funny way. Because as you can see on the roads are fine. There's no traffic anywhere. But he's yelling like he's very angry at the traffic. And this is weird because the words that he's saying out of his mouth do not match the words that you're hearing. So, that's strange. Anyways, there's a doll in the doll maker's back seat who kills him, and then the doll maker, who's like a drummer boy outfit doll, walks out of the car and walks off. And then he's killed by the doll fixer dude, this guy, the hobo guy. He's hiding in a corner, and the doll's walking by, and he grabs the doll, and he does something off screen with it, and then the film ends. It's kind of strange. I'm not gonna lie about that. It's a strange film, but it's thankfully short. It's watchable. It's very watchable, at least once, to find out what's going on. It's a decent little story, but it is a very, very, very tight budget story. It's not art house. It's not... yeah. But there is some unique stuff about it, like with how she's speaking in post throughout the whole film, and she doesn't actually speak a word in actuality throughout the film, so that's all nice. overall, I would say that the dollar didn't beat me this time. But this beats the dollar. It's probably more like a $2 movie, but you only paid $1 for it, so that's pretty nice. I don't know how to end these things. Be imaginative.